Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. It's Thursday's time for Worldview with Denis Campbell, who's editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine and also author of the ebook The Vagina Wars. Denis, we have so much news in the last 72 hours related to the News Corporation phone hacking scandal, but for people who aren't familiar with it or haven't been following it, give us the quick rundown on what this is all about.
Well, earlier this year, the News of the World newspaper, which is one of the Murdoch properties, was shut down. Actually, it was last year, toward the end of last year. And that was over something called the phone hacking scandal. What they did, and the Sun, and it turns out the Times and several other papers that are part of the Murdoch empire did, was they managed to hire a number of private investigators who used technology to break into the voicemail boxes of everybody's cell phone. These were members of the royal family, these were celebrities, these were people in positions of power. And what was happening was that they were getting details heretofore unknown anywhere else, and they were then putting them into stories or using details that were not known by anybody else to blackmail politicians and other members of the local community. What happened, though, that was the most sinister part of this was that a 12-year-old girl by the name of Millie Dowler went missing. And what one of the people, the editors at the News of the World did was they kept on checking and updating her voicemail box on her cell phone, and they deleted several messages. This gave her parents, who of course were desperately searching for her, the false hope that she was alive and was listening to her messages and clearing those messages. When the scandal first broke, this was the main piece of it. Then a number of celebrities came forward and began to issue complaints, including one that could affect their ability to do operations in the States, which we'll talk about. What's happening now is that Rupert and James Murdoch were both called before the Levinson inquiry. This is an inquiry that David Cameron put together almost a year ago. They've had about 120 separate testimony sessions, and it's become very riveting political theater as we watch the editors of many of the news publications, and of course now we've had both Rupert and James live on television for 3 straight days.
Yeah, so the question, I guess, at the top of a lot of people's list is how far up did awareness that these practices were being employed go, and what did we hear today from Rupert Murdoch about that?
Well, Rupert Murdoch has been extraordinarily cagey, defensive, combative. This is not a situation that he's used to being in. He's used to paying people to go out and ask tough questions. And the QC Foy, the gentleman that is the attorney for the Levinson Committee in the High Court, was asking some very dogged, determined questions over the course of a day and a half. And a man like Rupert Murdoch is not used to being questioned for that long a period of time. Today, he finally snapped and said, yes, he admitted that he had failed, but he never admitted that any of it was either known by him or his son James, which strains the level of credulity. How two people that could have so much control over the organization, both from a cultural perspective and having run these newspapers for a number of years, could then simultaneously claim no knowledge of the culture of hacking or anything that was going on inside the organization.
So what do we expect as far as the next question is, how is this going to, or will it affect News Corporation properties in the U.S., and have these practices been employed in the U.S.? What do we know about that? What can we predict so far?
Well, there's a couple of American actors that have also residency here in the United Kingdom who are claiming that their own U.S. telephones were hacked. That's problem number one for Rupert Murdoch. But the biggest problem facing him is that a number of arrests have been made of former News International employees, these being editors and very senior people inside of the publications. A number of them have, in your terms, turned state's witness and have basically said, yes, in order to protect themselves, they'll do what they need to do. But if any one of these people is convicted for lying to police or trying to buy information from police or phone hacking, that comes under then the jurisdiction of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. And that is what could be the ultimate Achilles heel for Rupert Murdoch and the entire Fox organization, because once the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is invoked, and it is already starting to be investigated by the U.S. Justice Department, you've opened a whole new can of worms that both the Federal Communications Commission and the Securities and Exchange Commission can come now and be partners in. And if he is found to have violated international law using these foreign corrupt practices, It places all of his television and broadcasting licenses, including those of Fox News, at risk.
Okay, so certainly we're nowhere near the end of this. In reality, just beginning, at least as far as the United States is concerned. I want to touch, in the limited time we have, on the ebook, The Vagina Wars, which is doing incredibly well. Tell us a little bit about the book and where people can get it.
Well, this is a book that I wrote as an ebook. It's about 60 pages in length, so it's a good 3-hour read, and it's part of a series. The first one in the series was Lipstick on This Pig, and it came apart as of a BBC interview that I did, wanting explanation as to what the U.S. Election process was all about. We were having all these GOP elections, but nobody really understood the nomination process. Once that was done, and that was again about 60 pages, I decided I was going to tackle this war on women issue because as a father with 3 daughters and a grandfather, I really had reached a point where I was getting very aggravated that issues that we had litigated in the 1960s were coming back again. And one of the things that most aggravated me was that we've had 944 separate pieces of legislation regarding women's reproductive rights introduced just since January of this year, all part of ALEC and all part of the whole ongoing scandal there. I wanted people to understand the scope of it and why this is going to remain a huge issue throughout the rest of the election. And coming next, I'll be talking about the Mormon issue and can the U.S. elect a Mormon president. And finally, I'll do a 4th book, all within the next 3 to 4 months, that will look at Romney versus Obama for the general election.
Okay, and tell us again, where can people get The Vagina Wars?
You go to Amazon.com or Amazon.co.uk, their Kindle store. It's available there. It's very inexpensively priced. It's $2.99 or £1.99, and it seems to be doing very well. It's up there with Game Change and the 2 Politico ebooks on the list of Kindle for elections and politics. So your support's great, and it really helps to keep this issue out there in the minds of the potential voters, so they really understand what's going on in this election.
No question. There needs to be a voice countering the Fox News claim that the war on women is simply made up. Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine, great as always to talk to you.
Thank you. Same here.